Okay. So you're going to have a coefficient that could be out front of the radical. If there's nothing written, it's an unwritten 1. You're going to have an index. If your index is not written, it is automatically a square. It's a 2. Okay? This lovely symbol, this is your radical symbol. Okay? This is your radical symbol. And everything that's underneath that radical symbol, so we could have something like, I don't know, 125 x squared y to the third. I did. This is called your radicand. R-A-D-I-C-A-N-D, if you can't see that. I apologize because it's R-A-D-I-C-A-N-D. No, it becomes too dark.
It's all right. If you can't see the front of your paper, your issue wasn't on yet.
If the index is not written, that little asterisk at the bottom, if the index is not written, it's automatically a 2.
And that's for square root.
Uh-huh. If it's not written, it's automatically the square root.
Thanks, Miss Smith. You make teaching so easy. Learning so easy. All right, right back. Cut the recording.
Cut the recording. We should try over. She messed it up. All right, friends.
I tried to say that one time with the presentation.
So, underneath what we just did is all of your steps on simplifying radicals. Y'all look at these words and you're like, huh? Nothing makes sense until we actually do it. So we're going to jump straight into our examples. We have 6 examples. Okay? So, your other paper, it gets folded in half like a booklet. So simplifying radicals practice should be on the front. Yes, you will glue the blank side down. On page 78. Am I really that predictable?
Yes.
Yo, bro, what we gonna do when we get to page 100?
I don't want to do Really? Wait, what he's
He said, what are we going to do when we get to page 100?
We're going to actually have a party.
What about the end?
We're gonna flip out.
You know, like every elementary does like the 100 days of school parties.
No.
We can have the 100 pages of notebook parties. I'll think about it. All right.
And Charles Lewis was late. We never did that. In middle school, they won't let us have parties. We have to do it like behind your back.
Yeah, we had to sneak in.
Yeah, to sneak in.
All right. Okay. When we simplify radicals, which is why we covered prime factorization yesterday, we need to break this into its prime factorization. So we're going to start with 28. Okay? What is a prime number that divides into 28? 7. If I divide by 7, I'm left with 4. What prime number divides into 4?
2.
That leaves me with
2.
And what prime number divides into 2?
2.
And that leaves me with 1. There's my birthday candle.
That's a 3-tier birthday.
It's a 3-tier cake. Okay, so.
Hey, y'all be quiet.
I don't care. When I'm teaching, your mouth stays shut, because then you've got questions later on what the heck's happening. And I'm not going over it again because you decided not to pay attention. Okay, so now you're going to write everything in the prime factorization. We're not going to do 2 squared. We're literally going to write it out. Okay, so you can see what's happening here. So 28 is 2 times 2 times 7. Okay. It could be written as 2 squared times 7. We're going to leave it here for now. Okay. All right. If I have x cubed, how many x's is that? 3. So you're going to go ahead and write times x times x times x.
I think I remember doing it.
Then we've got a y. And then I have 8 z's. I ran out of room, so I'm going to put it underneath. Z, 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 and Z.
That's what I'm trying to catch. My Z's be looking like
The Z's? Trying to catch your Z's?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you look at this example, what is my index?
Couldn't be.
What?
3.
2. Remember, if your index is not written, down here my index is a 3. It's written. Up here there's nothing written, so it's an automatic 2. So my index is a 2. So what that tells me is once I break it all down into its prime factorization, I'm going to circle in groups of 2. So watch what I do. I've got 2 2's, so they can be circled. I only have 1 7, so I skip it. I've got 3 x's. Well, I can only circle 2 of them. I have to circle in 2's. So the other x is left alone. I only have 1 y, so we leave it. My z's, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Everybody go with that. We're grouping according to the index. So now, everything that you have circled comes out front and becomes your coefficient. So, I circled 2, and I've only circled 1 of them, so it has an exponent of 1. You don't need to write it.
What do you mean you only circled 1 of them?
You only circled 1 group of 2's.
1 pair, yeah.
1 pair. 1 pair.
So if it was 2 pairs.
If it was 2 pairs, it would be 2 squared. Okay, so I only circled 1 pair, so it has an exponent of 1. I circled an x, and only 1 of them, so it has an exponent of 1. My z's, I circled 1, 2, 3, 4, so it has an exponent of 4.
What about your y?
Okay, hold on. We're going to get there. Okay, everything that was not circled goes back underneath that square root. So we now draw our square root, and I put the 7 and the x and the y back underneath there.
So basically, we know prime factorization. I don't think so.
That's it. You've just simplified that radical. You're done.
We don't have to solve it?
We're not solving it.
Now
We're
you're
just
down,
simplifying.
you get one that
You give
goes
us
off
the
the
easy
paper.
stuff first and then
Of
you're
course.
smart.
Okay? That's your answer. Yep. So let's move down to this one. Okay? Prime factorization first. So I need to break down 32. Give me a prime number. It's even, so I would start with 2. That leaves me with 16.
4 and
4.
4 is not prime. 2. Yes.
Wouldn't it be easier if you put the 16 over 2 ones and 2 over 16?
No, because 16 is not prime. You cannot do that. You can only pull out prime numbers. Okay. Bless you. You can only pull out prime numbers.
With H, you could do 2.
With H, 8, I can do 2. I tried to say H. So I'm left with 4. 4 I can do.
2.
And I'm left with
2.
and 2. And finally, I'm finished. Okay. So 32 breaks down into 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then I have a squared, so I have 2 a's. And I've got 6 b's. I ran out of room again. I ran out of room, so I went underneath.
How many B's? 6.
It's b to the 6th power, so you should have 6 of them, okay? This time, my index is what?
3.
3. So now, when I circle, there must be 3 of the same thing in the circle. So I've got some 2s. I don't have enough A's. I've got 2 groups of B's. Again, what you circle comes out front. So I've got 2 and 1 group of them, so it's 2 to the 1st. I circled cubed root. 2 times 2 is 4. And A times A squared.
So why do we multiply? Because there's 2 of them.
Because there's 2 of them. So up here, when we were left over, we only had 1 7. There was nothing to multiply it against, so it just stayed 7. There was no other X's. There was no other Y's. Okay. Your index is a 3 still. You still have the cubed root. Do not lose your index. Okay, so that's the biggest thing that I see people struggle with is I'll write, you guys will see something like this. And you get confused between what's your index and what's your coefficient. Okay, just know that your index is always going to be tiny. You're going to shrink it. Okay, if it's a coefficient, it's going to be a big number. Or if you see something like 2 square roots of 8, they assume that this 2 is the index. It's not. If it's a big number out front of the square root, it's a coefficient. Okay, so please be careful with that. Okay. All right, open it up. All right, this time, what's my index? 4. Index is 4. We have to break down 20 first. What's prime and goes into 20? 5. You could do 5. And that leaves me with 4, 2, and 2, 2, and 1. Okay, so we've got 2 times 2 times 5. You've got 10 X's. And 5 Y's. Okay. After we do this one, I'm going to show you the shortcut.
No.
Okay. People hate this because they've got to write out 10 X's and 5 Y's. There is a shortcut. I'm going to show you it. If it confuses you, I need you to ignore it. Okay? And move on with this. Okay. So I'm grouping in 4s. So can I group 2s?
No.
Can I group 5s? How many groups of X's should I have?
2.
1, 2. How many groups of Y's? 1. So
Why are you grouping 4? Because the
index is 4.
And
Whatever the index is what you circle it. So if you look at the first one, it was square root, so we grouped in 2s. The third one was the cubed root, so we grouped in 3s. Okay. You're welcome. So I circled X's. They came up front. That has an exponent of 2. My Y has an exponent of 1. I'm not going to write it this time. Okay. Remember, if you have an exponent of 1, you do not have to write it. Back underneath that 4th root, you need to put everything that's left over. So 2 times 2 times 5 gives me 20. X times X, X squared, and Y. Okay. I'm not going to do this in the notes. That way, you know, you don't get confused. But if I wanted to do this shorthand, 20 x to the 10th, y to the 5th, okay? I can rewrite this all as fractions in the exponent. Yes, you know how to do that. Remember, the fourth root becomes the denominator. So this becomes 20 to the 1/4. This becomes x to the 10/4. This becomes y to the 5/4.
Can we ignore this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody wants to.
Nobody?
No. No, just
Kate
not like
wants
fractions.
to.
Yeah,
Kate
you
wants
meant
to.
to say fraction.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
Once
gotta
you
get
put the fractions in there, it was like,
Can we not fractions? Can
We
we
need
not
to
just
just
switch
go
it
like
to a
this.
fraction? Can we
I'm
do a
gonna need
fraction?
y'all to put your head down for a minute so I can
You
discuss this
can
with
do
Kate.
that. Oh,
Are you serious?
Head down for a minute
Yeah,
so I can
you're
discuss
about
this
to
with
do
Kate.
I
Yes.
be here.
Can we do something kind of like that, but in our mind, like we know, if we know
I just finished doing these.
20 can be divided by 4 a certain amount of times, we can do that in our head instead of big fraction.
Yeah, it's like 20 can be divided by 4. then
Because
other
you're
numbers.
not
But that's
dividing-
not gonna
dividing
work for
20.
20.
You're not dividing 20 by 4, you're doing the exponent.
Right.
Or
Right.
like something like that.
See
Like
what
the X
I have a way in my mind I'm thinking of. If you factor 20 and get that, and then you just divide the rest of the exponent by however many.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna ignore this for now, Kate. Okay. But here, I've got 10/4. What is that as an improper?
You want to do it.
What's 10/4 as an improper, or as a, I'm sorry, mixed fraction. Let's do it as a mixed number. So how many times does 4 go into 8? Or, yeah, 4 go into 8. 4 go into 10. 2 with how many left over? 1/2 or 2/4, right? So that's 2 and 2/4 or 2 and 1/2. Okay, you good there? Here, we've got 5/4, which is 1 and 1/4. Okay, so what has happened is I've pulled 2 X's out front. And I've pulled 1 Y out front, and everything else goes back in.
Whoa.
I'm A-okay if
What is that?
that's why I said I'm not putting it there. I'm not gonna force you to do that. I prefer the longhand sometimes. Okay.
There's like so much easier way to do it.
Yes.
So for the number, do you still have to do it the long way?
Yeah. To break it down. All right, friends. What's my index in this one? 3. Okay. We need to break down 162. I need a prime number that divides into 162. 17?
Yeah, I don't know. 2.
That's it.
Does 17 really work?
I don't know. I heard somebody else.
I can
No,
check.
3.
Well, no, I
No,
got
you add 17 to that. 3.
3 does work. 1 plus 6 is 8 plus 2. Or I'm sorry, 1 plus 6 is 7 plus 2 is 9. That takes you. So we can do 3. When I divide by 3, that leaves me with what? 54.
Yeah, 17 doesn't work.
I just realized Teresa's not here.
Yeah, I was sad.
What's prime that goes into 54?
3.
9?
3 again.
Take a bigger number.
That's fine. 3. What's that leave me with? 18.
We can do 3 too.
I can do 3 again, and that leaves me with 6.
Let's do 3 one more time.
3 one more time. 2 and 2 and 1.
I did mine totally different. Like,
Did you start with 2s?
No, I did 3, 2, 3, 3, 3.
You still ended up with the same answer though, right? See?
We're thinking.
I could use a 5-tier cake right about now. That sounds delicious. Yes.
Okay, so could we do it like instead of the whole fraction thing? Can we just take out like the index from the like?
So you can look at the 10 and say, I can pull out 4 and then another 4 and I'm left with 2.
All right, we can.
Yes.
Okay, 'cause that's a much
Yes,
easier
yes,
short way.
yes, that is still a short way. Yes, absolutely. So Brandon just said, I'm going to do it with this one. Okay, we'll do it the long way, but we're going to do it this one. 162a b cubed c to the fifth. Okay, so we're going to ignore the fact that we have a number right now. We're just going to look at the variable. So I have a to the first. Do I have 3 a's?
No.
No, they stay. I have b to the third. How many 3's can I pull out? 1. So that goes out front. C. How many 3's can I pull away from 5? 1 of them. So that goes out front. How many am I left with if I pull away 3? 2. C to the second. So that's another way to shorthand it. Okay. It only works with the variables, though. The numbers you actually have to break down first.
Wait,
Okay.
what about like?
Wait, don't you put in the numbers after?
Hold on. Hold on.
Yeah, what about like the 2 and the 3?
Hold. I said we didn't do the numbers yet. Hold on. You've got to break the numbers down first. You cannot just look at 162 and divide it by 3. That's not what the cubed root does.
No, I was saying like the 3 and the 2 and all of like the, because you would get the 3.
We didn't even get there yet. Calm down. Got you. Got you.
I'm already there.
So, if you want to shorthand the numbers and you don't want to rewrite them like this, you're more than welcome to go over here and say, okay, I'm grouping in 3's. So here's my group. That's what pulls out. Here's what's left.
Oh, Joe.
Okay. So you don't have to rewrite it again. I don't care. Okay. If you want to rewrite it, rewrite it. That means I've got one group of 3's. Again, I've got an A, I've got 3 B's, and 5 C's. I have a group of B's and a group of C's. So that means I have a 3 that comes out front, and it has an exponent of 1. There's only one circle. A B that comes out front with an exponent of 1. A C that comes out front with an exponent of 1. And that's everything. Everything else goes back underneath the cubed root. So then I'm left with 2 times 3, which is 6. Just one A. And my C and C becomes C squared. Okay. All right. What's my index? 4. Okay, so let's break down 24. 2 and 12. You could. 2 and 6. 2 and 3. 3 and 1. So I'm going to try to do this one without rewriting.
No.
If you need to write it all out, write it all out. Okay. We're going to try to do this one without rewriting. Okay. So, looking at my numbers, I need to group in what? 4's. Can I group anything?
Only do X's and.
No, I'm not worried about my variables yet. Numbers. Can I group any numbers?
No.
No. I need 4 of them. I only have 3 2's and 1 3. So none of that comes out front. So all of my numbers go back underneath. So underneath my 4th root, I'm putting the whole 24. I can't circle anything, so I need to multiply this all back together and give me 24. Okay, nothing gets circled. Okay, I have X's. I need to pull out 4 of them. Can I do it? Yes. How many? Groups of 4. 1. So I get an X out front. If I pull out 4 of these X's, I'm left with what? Minus 4. I'm left with a 1, so I'm just left with X. Okay, does that make sense? I removed 4 of them. It came out front. One group. Okay, my Y's. I have 3 of them. Can I pull anything out front?
No.
No, so it stays. Z's. I have 7 of them. Okay, so if I pull out one group, I'm left with 3. Can I pull out any more? No, so I can only pull out one group. So I pull out a Z, and it's Z to the first because I'm only pulling out one group. And I'm left with 3 of them. So it becomes Z to the third. Just writing it all out and circling it.
Do we
Okay.
have to put the one where the X and Z is outside, or
The exponent of 1? No.
But
It's not, they're not going to write it on the test. It's going to be XY or XZ.
Okay.
You don't like this way? You prefer the writing it out and circling?
Two.
By all means, that's fine. So if we wrote this out and circled, this would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And then you've got 5 X's, and you have 3 Y's, and you have 7 Z's. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. I can't circle any 2's. I can't circle any 3's. I've got one group of X's, no Y's, one group of Z's. So I pull out an X, I pull out a Z. Everything else goes back underneath. This becomes 24 again. This is just an X. This is Y to the third. And this is Z to the third. Okay, so either way you do it, you still end up with the same answer. I do not care. Okay, please understand and believe that. I don't care which way you come up with the answer. Okay? Whether you shorthand it or you take this long route, either way you're going to end up with the right answer. And if the long route works for you, I need you to get the right answer before I need you to mess it up. Okay, so please take the long way if you need the long way. Okay, how many of you prefer the long way? How many of you prefer the short route? How many of you just don't care? Okay, so I have a lot more people that prefer the long way than the short way. If you prefer the short way, I want you to go ahead and rock the short way. Okay, I'm going to do the long way because that's what majority of the class is enjoying and needing from me. Okay, so I'm going to stick with the long way. If you don't care, I don't care what you want to do. Okay. All right, last one. Index is 3.
It's 4. It's 4. The cube root of 64. What comes 460? No, cube root.
He's right. It'll break down into that. He's right. So watch what happens. I only have my square roots memorized for the most part. Like the cube root of 8 is 2. I've got my squares memorized, but all right. So 64. What's prime that goes into 64? 2. That gives me 32. Then I can do. That gives me. And 8. 2 again. 4, 2, and 2, 2, and 1. Okay, so this is 2, 6 times. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then I have 1 A, I have 2 B's, and I have 3 C's. Okay, my index is 3. So I'm grouping in 3s. So that's 1 group of 2s, 2 groups of 2s. I can't group A's, I can't group B's, but I can pull this group of C's out. So now I pulled out a 2, and I have 2 groups of them. So that's 2 squared. I pull out a C, but only 1 group, so that's C to the first. You can write it or not write it. I don't care. But understand that on your test, they're not going to put the 1 there. Understand that C to the first and C are the same thing. Everything else goes back underneath my cubed root. So I've got an A and B squared. So your final answer then, because you have that 2 squared on the outside, you actually have to do that. So 2 squared is 4C cubed root of AB squared. Yes. What's that? I'm entering in all these last grades. Once grade 30 hits, my grade book's closed. Questions?
Also,
We technically have till Monday, but Power's is going down this weekend for maintenance. And I'm not coming super early to do it on Monday. So what's not done by 3:30?
good thing I don't have any missing grades and homework that I didn't do.